In this video, I'll be talking about object-oriented programming. And of course, as the title suggests, it's actually going to be oversimplified. So first things first, we'll start with the definition. What do I mean by object-oriented programming? Now, object-oriented programming, or OOP, refers to languages that uses objects in programming. Now, in this video, I'm going to be using this term over here to refer to object-oriented programming. Now, let's actually define this statement. Let's make it more simple. Let's actually simplify it. So, first things first, we'll have to define what objects are. Objects, in the context of computer science or programming, are actually instances of classes, right? And what do I mean by classes? Classes, in computer science, once again, are basically just blueprints, right? They're the blueprints of objects. So, what exactly do I mean? What exactly does this diagram over here mean? It means that objects are actually just the instances or the manifestation of classes, or the physical manifestation of classes. I'm actually going to give you an example to simplify this, right? So, let's say, for example, this paper over here is a blueprint, and it's a blueprint of a house, for example, right? So the blueprint tells us that the house must have a window, or let's say windows. It must have windows. It must have a door or doors, and it must have a roof, etc. of different color. And so basically, what this paper over here does is that it describes what a house is. It tells us the properties of a house. It tells us that the house must have a window. It tells us that the house must have a roof. And it also tells us that the house must have doors, right? So it tells us what the form of a house is. And in order, actually, this over here is this thing that we just did over here. This is actually what we call the class. It's actually the physical manifestation or the physical meaning of a class, right? It's a blueprint. It's a blueprint of something. It's a blueprint of an object. The object, which we actually first try to define, is when the blueprint is used to instantiate or to create an actual house, right? So when we create an actual house, let's say this over here is my house, and it has 2 windows, one door, one main door, and it has a roof of color red, for example. This over here is what we call the object, right? So this is the object. And this is an object of class house because this is actually created from the house, right? As we can see, this object over here, or my house, has a window which we previously defined in the class house or in the blueprint, right? So basically, the object is created from the blueprint, which is actually the class, right? So that's the connection. The classes help us build the objects through which we can actually give meaning to them in code or in program, right? So that's just the main idea. We make objects out of classes. And so these objects in object-oriented programming are actually the main moving things of a code or of the program or of the software, right? It's how, or it's actually the center or the focus of the entire code, right? It's in the construction of objects and the interaction of objects, or the interaction between objects, such that it actually builds the code, right? So that's object-oriented programming. We build a software we build program in a way that emphasizes the use, the manipulation, and of course the interactions of objects. That's why it's called object-oriented programming. Now let's go to the second definition of object-oriented programming. Now, object-oriented programming, or OOP, is a paradigm or pattern of programming whereby the solution to a programming problem is modeled as a collection of collaborating objects. Now, collaborating objects. Now, this was the part that I actually emphasized just a while ago. And so basically what I mean by this is that objects of different classes, like let's assume that these circles are objects of different classes. These objects, the interaction among these objects are actually responsible for the program itself. Or basically, the interactions among objects of different classes or of varying classes are responsible for the solution of a programming problem, right? So if we were to, let's say, make an analogy in real life, we could say that if, for example, our tasks is to write something or to draw a circle on a piece of paper, the object 1 over here would be the paper, right? The paper itself. And object 2 over here would be the, let's say, for example, just a pencil. I'm sorry for the bad drawing, but yeah, that pencil, right? So these two objects, the pencil and of course the paper, are responsible for the successful drawing of, say, a circle in the middle, right? So let's say that was the program. The program or the problem was to draw a circle, and we used the following objects. We used the paper which was here, and we used a ball pen, of course, to perform the task of writing a circle in the middle, right? So this was the solution of programming problem, right? So this is actually the kind of like the example or let's say the elaboration of what I really meant by collaborating objects, right? Two objects collaborating with each other in order to, how do I say this? In order to actually accomplish a specific task, right? That being the programming problem. So this is really how object-oriented programming is about. It's about this, right? So now this leads us to the question, what makes OOP OOP, right? So what makes object-oriented programming, right? Now, object-oriented programming, or OOP, actually has four concepts, right? Four basic concepts that, make it OOP. Now, these concepts are the following. Number 1 is encapsulation. Number 2 is abstraction. Number 3 is inheritance. And number 4 is polymorphism. Now, I'm actually going to be talking about each of these concepts over here, and it will actually be in the next videos or so. And so if you really want to know what these encircled concepts are, just watch out for the next videos or so. Thank you very much for watching, and see you soon.